This would have me disconnecting my computer, throwing it in the bin and going to sleep with the lights on. r/AskReddit. People who have been on the deep web, what's the scariest thing you've found? Like the video and subscribe to the channel, and why dog will bless you with good luck. The deep web is largely not a scary place, unless you really go digging for things. Child porn, human trafficking, etc., will not likely be openly available to you without some effort, because it would be more likely to be shut down. All that I've really seen is lots of drugs, stolen goods, counterfeits, guns, etc. It seems to fluctuate. When I first got on Tor years ago, the big site that every guide pointed you to, was advertised as an index of sorts. That site had so many links to child porn right on the front page, and this wiki was basically the de facto place to go for first-time Tor users. Then that got cleaned up thanks to 4chan raids and FBI involvement. You had to now actively search for that stuff, I assume, because it was no longer front and center. Now here in 2018, I decided to see what the dark web was doing. I wanted fentanyl patches, and again the child porn is front and center on the other big index that new people are pointed to. I used to take pictures of drugs for a local Silk Road dealer. I was over his house once, and he was testing out some onion links, and he suddenly said, "Oh my god, look at this." It was a site where a guy in America would fuck the corpses of dead animals, and post his experiences with graphic pictures and descriptions. If you scrolled a bit further, you saw he moved on to humans. I walked away from the computer pretty quickly. Well, when I visited, I mostly visited the hacking cybersecurity part. Interesting to see how people go about hacking various things, and really educational. Yes, there are people buying and selling 0 days etc., but it's mostly social engineering. Anyway, the scariest was a hacking advertising a service, where he was willing to upload child porn onto someone's computer and report him to the police as a form of taking someone out. Well actually, the scariest part was discovering that there were at least 2 people in the chat room that I was in discussing about kernel security who had used that service. I decided to stick to more regular forums afterwards. I found a guy, who lived in a house in the middle of nowhere, who had his sister locked up in his house and would rent her out to people. I noped out of there pretty fast. My sister worked for an inpatient child psych ward for the county. It's a lot more common than people think. Mind you, it's not random people picking up your kids off the street that are dangerous for the most part, but family members. Mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters, are the most likely to harm children. Hitman site. No idea if it was a scam. I'd be willing to bet that they just take the money and run, but I noped out quick anyway. It was like, you pay them the equivalent of $5,000 USD upfront in Bitcoin, and they kill someone of your choosing and cover it up, and you pay the rest later. Scary as fuck. Definitely a scam. What are you going to do? Complain to the police that you paid for a hit and it didn't go through? Report him? But then that'd be self-incrimination. On the flip side, I'd be kind of scared to scam people who pay for hitmen on the internet. While randomly clicking around Tor one night, I found a site with a riddle and a text box to enter an answer. After figuring it out, it took me to another page that had a message to decode, and another text box. Basically every page was a puzzle, and got harder every time. I was 15 and not very smart with those kinds of things, so I found a forum where other people had discovered the site and were talking about it. Apparently on the final page, it just displayed a date and a quote from Alice in Wonderland. I believe it was just a site made to be some sort of entertainment for very experienced decoders and programmers, but there was speculation that it was a hacker recruiting site similar to Cicada 3301. Either way, it creeped me out a lot. I saw that. It was a pig's head, Wonderland quote and some creepy music. There was more going on, metadata and images etc., which showed another level with a timer if I recall correctly, but it seemed like it was just some guy LARPing. Also snap on the age thing. A friend of mine went digging, and found a video of someone cutting a face from someone off his head and used it as a mask. Those are the type of videos that make me sick as hell. I got really curious one weekend, and set out to see what's been being kept from me. It's both full of interesting and dark shit, but it's mostly crap, and crap I don't want to be a part of. Some things I had ran across or found sites for: drugs, weapons and counterfeit money deliveries. A hitman who only took cryptocurrencies, and would only do adults. I didn't see prices, but he said it could take around a month, for him to find and execute in a safe for him way. He said he'd prefer you don't do people you know though. But like, what's the point then? There was quite a bit about if you really want him to do a kid, It's gotta be for a specific reason, and usually you'd have to pay for the parent as well, but the just seem to be like, I don't want to, but if you need it, give me a shit ton of money. A credit card swapping website, and a credit card buying website. Counterfeit pay card website, this is the one that got me the most interested. Essentially they use spoofing VPN and stolen credit card numbers to buy or fake a bunch of prepaid pay cards, then they sell those at like 60% of the value or something. I couldn't verify the validity of it, so may. Porn of all kinds, it's not really something you can stumble into though, typically the direct links are pretty hidden. I didn't go looking for it, but you get a sense of where you can ask for what. A nude trading repository, like what the fappening was referring to. You essentially trade famous unleaked nudes for others. I had nothing, so it was essentially a strange Craigslist of like, I need pics of this person, I have pics of this person and that person unleaked, I can trade. A guy who you tell him something you want, and he'd go steal it from a store and sell it to you for like half the cost. It's an interesting business, lol. Human trafficking. I never went to the sites, but I found a link to one. I just assumed it was something I wouldn't want to see and didn't bother fact-checking. Basically, unless you're a depraved person, it's a huge waste of time and a glimpse into the worst part of people. Someone showed me this website once, where it was like a stream feed aggregation on these pages, and there were hundreds of pages, and each page had probably 50 streams on it. They were all feeds from do-it-yourself security cameras, that people have in their homes that back up to the cloud. So crazy to see, these people probably have no idea. The dude who can hack you, and put horrible shit on your computer so you can go to prison, I wouldn't annoy that dude. That stuff has happened to a number of old people in my town. The police wrote a letter saying that if that happens to you, report it, they will understand. A friend of mine used one of those Indian-based tech companies that fix your computer using TeamViewer. I told him it was a terrible idea. Anyways, roughly 3 months after, I was over to play FIFA, and we noticed his connection was incredibly slow and laggy. We called Comcast, and unfortunately, a few days later he was visited by the FBI. Looks like some people were using his modem as some sort of point that would share child porn. We explained that he used the Indian company, and fortunately all they did was take away his modem. No charges or anything. When I was at school in Colorado, we would buy Xanax, ecstasy, and whatever else off the deep web all the time, but once, we ran into a vendor, selling people without arms and legs. I'm guessing they were meant to be sex slaves, but who knows if that's all they were being used for. I guess I never really went on to anything too dark, if you will, but I did find a black market site. Was shocked on how cheap it was to buy weapons and drugs in the States, although, I'll never know if the sites I was on were legit or not. If you found weapons for cheap, it was a honeypot. Black market guns can be marked up as much as 10 times due to the risk involved. It depends on the gun, its history, and the market. A clean, unused gun, with no history can sometimes go for more than retail. But, not always. If it's missing its serial number, it's about half retail. If it has already been used in a crime, it's about 10% of retail. I once heard a statistic in a documentary about illegal guns. Apparently, more than 95% of the world's population lives within 50 miles of an AK-47 for less than $500. A friend of mine claims he was snooping around where he didn't belong, black market forums and hacking forums, when someone private messaged him, basically saying, "I've looked into you because I see that you're in here a lot, and I know you're not here to buy or use the services, because you're just a kid. I don't mind, but others will, and you haven't protected yourself well enough to be here. Get off if you know what's good for you." This would have me disconnecting my computer, throwing it in the bin and going to sleep with the lights on. Was on a pretty disreputable porn site, had just wandered over there because they had full-length hentai with nonken, sexual violence, and no blur. Sue me, ya girl has nonken fantasies. At one point I thought I clicked a link of that nature. It had everything I had mentioned up there, nonken, sexual violence, etc., and the tags stated as much. Know which tag was missing? Hentai. Full live-action video of a girl getting raped. It haunts me to this day, both because I did not need to see that. It's a fantasy, not something I would wish on my worst enemy, much less some poor anonymous woman, and I'm always scared it put me on some NSA list. It's not my thing at all, but it would make more sense to prefer it with hentai, because it's, you know, a drawing. But with real people, it can be harder to distinguish that line. I guess some people might like that about real over hentai, but that's a blurry line teetering on a very slippery slope. Thanks for watching. Subscribe below for more daily content.